G'day everyone, and welcome back to Minecraft. Now, today is a bit of a special day because I'm announcing a new project of mine. And by new, I mean that this has been going a little while. And the only reason as to why I'm announcing this thing as late as I currently am is because I wanted to make sure that this has some staying power, as it were. As you can probably see, my project is going to surround, at least for now, statues. I've already made a tutorial on how to build a fairly compact statue, and if you haven't watched that, what are you doing with your lives? But for now, we're gonna do something entirely different. For you see, these aren't just any old statues. These are the statues of my upcoming project called, aptly named, Clay Mosaic. Despite the fact that it contains approximately no clay blocks whatsoever. Now, the reason as to why I wanted to show you these statues right now is because, spoiler, and also spoilers over there, is because Clay Mosaic combines several things that I loved all throughout my life. Number one, Minecraft. As is evident by this wonderful little game in which, admittedly, I made the slimes fly and not a whole lot else be present. I love Minecraft. I think that bears no confusion. I do genuinely like Minecraft, and I also kind of enjoy pixel art as well. Second thing, Age of Empires. To be specific, Age of Mythology, which these things are greatly inspired by. Back in the day, you see, I made a bunch of statues for an idea that I had about recreating every single Age of Mythology building in this Minecraft game of ours. And number three, elemental magic. I'm going to go into great detail as to how I've chosen what I've chosen, and you know, you will just even at a glance you can probably tell which element is supposed to be what. I've given quite a bit of a thinking time for all of these. Now you might be asking yourself, Namesh, why have you gone for, what is it, 18 elements, 16 on the outer ring, and then, is it a ring? It's more of a square. 16 on the outer ring, and then 2 more in the middle. The 2 more are basically meant to be neutral elements. This one is elementless. This is kind of just all elements combined. I didn't exactly know what to do with this one. I just wanted to make like a cool snake person because I didn't do that. But yeah. As for the other 16, you see, in Minecraft, there are 16 colors for every single block that can, in fact, be colored. There are 16 types of copper, there are 16 types of terracotta, there are concrete. There are 16 types of concrete, there are 16 types of wool, there are 16. And so I thought, despite the fact that this project is based on a very old Flash game from before the days of Flashpocalypse, the game only had 12 elements, and I expanded it to 16 because that just works a bit better with the whole narrative of this being a Minecraft build. Now, the upcoming videos are going to revolve around things like houses and mills and town centers and stuff, because all of those are going to be directly influenced by Age of Mythology and Age of Empires. If for no other reason than because I love both of those games, and I wanted to pay an homage. I also wanted to pay an homage to all of the elemental magic and all of the Flash games that are built around elemental magic. So, as well as these are just decoration. I do actually like these quite a lot. I just realized that I'm going in the wrong direction. Fuck. So, let's start with let's just dive in, and you'll see my thinking as we go along, and I'll show you what I've got for you today. The first statue that I wanted to highlight, that I wanted to showcase, is a little gnome, sort of dwarven king-esque figure with a tower shield and a mace. You can probably figure out by the very earthy, very diamond heavy, very just... It's an earth element statue. It's very, very earth inspired. Maybe not necessarily earth that you would imagine coming from the Witch series, or the, what are they called, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Ninjago, anything of the kind. I wanted to take a very brown and grey, and specifically cyan approach to the element of earth, because, well, cyan and brown are natural contrasts, and grey seems like a fairly earthy color as well. So out of this idea was born this very earthy color scheme and a design for very earthen, very sort of subterranean king. The only thing that I think that this guy would be missing is a couple more pieces of jewelry. The second element is water. This is one of my favorites. Despite how simple it is on the surface, it is also a major pain in the backside to work with, primarily because of this thing. This is supposed to be a vial, a pot, whatever you want to call it, because this guy is supposed to be the Aquarius little god, the water spiller. He spills water, that's what he does. And the specific reason as to why I wanted to include something like that is because my star sign, this is a lore drop, my star sign is Aquarius. It never made sense to me as to why an Aquarius would be an air sign, but by everything does this work wonders. So I kind of went all out on this one, as I did with many of the upcoming statues, and I especially like this tail. This tail is possibly one of my favorite building techniques, because it doesn't involve legs pretty much whatsoever. I just went and had a lot of fun designing something that looked quite a bit marine. I think that if I wanted to go even further, I would add a couple of corals to act as fins, but I think I'm good enough as it is. The special block for this one is lapis lazuli. I wasn't exactly confident in any of my decision making at this point, and the trident is basically just the same trident from the statue, or rather the statue from the tutorial video is the same as this, because this came first technically. Both are inspired by this thing. It's a simple design, but it works surprisingly well. Also, there's a bunch of corals. There's no real reason as to why these are located in this particular pattern. I just wanted to have a coral crown, much like I did with the stalactites. And if I'm honest, it works surprisingly well. The air statue. Now, once again, referring back to Avatar: The Last Airbender, air is seen as a pacifist element, something that doesn't have a whole lot of use for combat or realistically anything of a kind, even though it could be argued that it's one of the most overpowered elements, but that's besides the point. For this particular thing, I wanted to really visualize the airborne nature of air by adding a couple of wings. Once again, 9x9 fairly compact. I went as big as I comfortably could without going overboard. I also included the little, I think it's called a wreath. Eric, put the word that I'm thinking of on the screen. And then the last one in this row is fire. Or at least, well, it's basically fire. There's no two way of going around this. This is just fire. And for this particular one, I was very much inspired by various mythologies surrounding, especially the Norse mythology, considering how, like, prominent, maybe not necessarily the element of fire is, but just in general, how cool some of the more, like, warlordy gods, like the Aesir, are. And especially the All-Father, Odin. And while this individual is, in my canon at least, female, she still definitely has the same eye patch that, you know, Odin does, just because I wanted her to look a bit cooler. Other than that, it's just a simple triangular shield, and I almost want to call this a Dane axe, even though this is just an axe. Next up, this is a fairly similar color scheme to what we had back with Earth, and I almost want to say that that's by design, even though that would be kind of lying-ish. But this is a very stable, this is a very Earth-like element, despite not being entirely Earth. If you haven't figured this out yet, it is basically ice. And more specifically, it's, I guess, the element of cold over anything else. Because these four elements are basically your material elements. You've got earth, water, air, fire, typical Archimedean stuff. This is the transformative elements, namely electricity, light, darkness, and cold. I really like this one. Mainly because ice as an element have gotten through so many iterations. I lost track. I think I utilized andesite at one point. I think I used like I don't remember all of the different blocks that I tried to use for this one, and none of them seemed to work until I singled out this diorite and spruce combo, and also this like light blue concrete and stuff, and now it looks immaculate. Moving along, this is Darkness, the Blind Lady of Darkness, and trust me, it's not just a title. She is in fact blind. If you go back and look at all of these statues, they have eyes. This guy has eyes. This guy has eyes, even though they're covered by a helmet. This person, I mean, underneath the veil and underneath the blindfold, she might have eyes, but they are definitely covered because, well, I just wanted to cover those. On top of that, I gave her a wide-brimmed hat, and when that didn't feel like it was quite enough for me, I also added this halo that's kind of inspired by various different mythologies like Egyptian and to a certain extent even Slavic. Moving right along, this guy is basically the Light Knight. The Night Light. No, that's Darkness. Anyway, an angelic figure holding a very big, very tall, very cumbersome looking sword, which is actually quite agile for its size and length. As well as sporting some decorative wings and a and an entire 8-block halo supported by a singular andesite wall. This is also one of my favorites, and one of the reasons as to why is because of just how just angelic everything is. Admittedly, this guy also went through a few different iterations. I had him use birch, I had him use diorite at some points, but this specific like combination of a cleanly textured quartz with a rougher andesite texture is working surprisingly well. And I especially love the introduction of ochre frog lights as well. I love all of the frog lights, but I specifically wanted to use ochre just because of how much it just looks like you've got the sun in the palm of your hand. Next up, electricity. Now this one is a bit anachronistic because all of these are supposed to be like fantasy elements and stuff. This guy is basically is kind of like the most I'm willing to go when it comes to sci-fi stuff. And to a certain, to be completely honest, it's not even that sci-fi-ish. It's just an automaton with a singular eye, based off of very, and I mean at this point, very old designs that I had back when I was just a teenager, which is realistically a long time ago. But surprisingly, I love how this turned out. I love the twin spears. I love these as wires, and I especially love this like solar panel hat, which utilizes actual like daylight detectors, and this oak wood also is working quite nicely in tandem with them. It would probably be better if I tried to use spruce, or at least it would match a bit better. But I specifically wanted to give two unique colors, two unique blocks for every single god statue within this project. So if you notice, I'm pretty sure there are no gods that actually overlap unless you want to count like the center ones, and even then that would be a stretch. So yeah, having oak as part of the oak block family, saved me a lot of hassle when it comes to making sure that these daylight detectors work with the design of the robot. Moving right along to what I want to call the spiritual elements. These guys are basically meant to represent the life and death and the characters living inside the world of Clay Mosaic, because there are going to be various characters, or at least I want there to be various characters. I don't know if I'm going to get around to making like actual people or individuals in there. I don't think that there's going to be an actual storyline, but for now, I wanted to make a couple of elements that would be about the living and the not quite living creatures within the Clay Mosaic. And number one in the queue would be the God of Flesh, a Minotaur-esque, dragon-esque beast of immense proportions. Now, I have a lot of interesting tidbits and things coming up when it comes to this little Minotaur guy. More so than just his, his one singular statue is going to provide. His building set is going to be a particular favorite of mine just because of how wild it's going to get. So stay tuned for that as well. But even just this design alone is making me very excited. I think that I went all out, as is the case with a lot of the statues. It's not my favorite, but it is a cool design nevertheless. Also, the pedestal has a heart. Next up, I almost want to say that this is my second favorite as like a whole. As you can probably tell, this is a nature goddess, a plant life goddess, the goddess of agriculture, whatever you have, this is the goddess of that. And on top of being inspired by a particular favorite of mine on YouTube, or at least former favorite now that she graduated, this individual is just a nice, benevolent Mother Nature goddess of just plants and sunshine. Well, not actual sunshine. Sunshine will be over there. But still, I quite liked designing this almost fawn Demeter individual, and I especially liked the idea of, what is it? There we go. Utilizing these spore blossoms in order to give her a little bit of, ambient particles flowing around. I think, I'm not so sure, but I think, aren't they supposed to have like particles as well? It's whatever. Regardless of the situation, I do quite enjoy anything that sports quite a bit of greenery, and because this individual is basically entirely green and jungle, I do feel quite happy with how the nature goddess turned out. From the two gods representing life, the fauna and the flora, let me go to the goddess of death, or more specifically, well, I guess just death. This is also inspired by a YouTuber. You can probably even figure out which one that's going to be inspired by. I did once upon a time think of introducing a little bit of Cherry as an homage, but I couldn't figure out a way to make it work with the otherwise dark and broody color scheme of the specific statue. Once again, I wanted the character in question, I wanted the statues in question to be unique and to have unique blocks when it comes to their color palettes. So this one is making use of the stone brick, specifically stone brick. That's going to be important later in the project, and deep slate tiles, because deep slate is also going to be utilized, just not the tile variant. But yeah, this is the goddess of death, the undead, the plagues, the poisons, that sort of thing. And above all else, I adore how this crown turned out. Moving along, we've got the god of metal. I went bananas for this one. Not necessarily saying that it's also one of my favorites, but it is inspired by some of my favorite things on top of the things that I've already said, namely mythology and, elemental magic. This one is particularly special to me because this is all about Bionicle. And also there are some like Church of the Broken God vibes. I don't know if I'm allowed to show any of the artwork in the video, but you can probably imagine some like Clockwork Titans and stuff. This one doesn't have any clockwork because I couldn't put actual gears on on a 9x9 statue. The closest thing I've got for that it would be these like copper trapdoors, and even then those are small. But yeah, and above all else, this was before or at least majority of the statue was built before the advent of copper bulbs, of chiseled copper, and even waxed copper trapdoors. So a lot of it was added afterwards, as was tough. I did become very excited when they announced tough, because I think the placeholder block for this was granite, and granite does not look good in conjunction with copper. It blends a bit too much, so I'm very excited to have a bit more contrast with that. Moving right along, we've got the last category of elements, the cardinal ones. And the easiest way to explain what cardinal elements are all about is basically forces that would normally be called cosmic. And no other force out there feels more cosmic, to me at the very least, than the force of entropy. The elements of decay and disorder and absolute chaos, symbolized here by a very disjointed torso, more akin to, I almost want to say like a genie materializing out of thin air and bringing some very crooked, very otherworldly plans with it along the way, to an extent having to be restrained to the ground with chains, like genuine chains, above all else. And you can probably see, but these are also, they're floating. But they're supposed to be a thing. This is what it's supposed to be, as opposed to just having an empty hand. I also think that I'm supposed to have like it floating about a block higher, but I'm not going to move that for the obvious reason that everything is going to explode. I'm not keen on doing that. From the element of chaos, we've got the element of gravity, the force of ultimate order, and boy is it orderly. One of my biggest inspirations is a very old, very decrepit Flash game from the early 2010s called Elements the Game. And in that, gravity was visualized by these colossal beings, very tall, very heavy on the armor. And what I wanted to do when I paid homage is create the biggest shield possible for this particular element, which is a 9x9, about exactly as wide as the dimensions of the statue allow. And this gigantic, positively massive hammer. I think that I think I also was supposed to add things like heavy cores, but then I didn't. And I might do that later in the project, but for now, I do really enjoy how this thing looks, especially these like boar tusks. Even though I don't particularly think of them as boar tusks, especially as there's like breathing holes here. But separate from everything like that, it's a very imposing, very cool looking statue. From the elements of order and chaos, we move on to the last little cardinal elements, which are time and space. Time here represented by shameless appropriation of the ancient Egyptian culture, having this pharaoh crown. I forget the exact name that these are called by, but I know that those are worn by pharaohs. The ankh, or at least as close to an Ankh as you can possibly get. And just overall having a very sandy, very Egyptian-styled statue. And the reason why that's the case is really quite simple. The original... The game that I took the element of gravity and the element of entropy from also had a lot of influences from Egyptian mythologies when it comes to time. They had the opponent called Osiris, they had an Anubis creature, they had pharaohs, they had scarabs. So while I'm not exactly... I don't think that of this particular thing as being entirely Egyptian. I did really want to include as many pop fiction Egyptian element as I possibly could. And then finally, my all-time favorite element and my all-time favorite character. This is the Ether Ambassador, representing the realm that exists solely, well, both outside our Earth, but also representing a plane where everything is dominated by energy and pure thoughts. She has this like back halo that looks like an eye, which admittedly does look like it would belong more as like an Eye of Horus behind like a time statue, but I also thought that it would fit here quite as well, simply because it's the element of space and thinking and energy and stuff. The design is going to be very familiar to those that know me reasonably well, and to those that don't, well, it's just I'm not afraid to let it be lost on you. That's a mean thing to say, I'm sorry. I like the staff, I like the hair, or at least how I've approached hair. It's a bit awkward considering the shoulder pads are a bit too high, and trust me, these are supposed to be shoulder pads. But everything else is quite interesting. I didn't talk about the special blocks for this one, but Skulk is immaculate for something that's supposed to represent the stars and the cosmos and stuff. But yeah, these are the 16 main elements in Clay Mosaic. I also have a couple of statues that I just did just because I can. The neutral elements. You will never guess what this is inspired by. Indeed, there's going to be a neutral element, effectively symbolizing a civilization that hasn't yet chosen an element or hasn't yet discovered how to properly maintain their grasp over an element. They're not elementless in the sense that they can never learn, but they are elementless for now. And until they learn how to control an element, they are kind of forced into being just straight laborers and stuff. And then the final statue that I wanted to showcase is also kind of my idea of an element that's not really an element but a combination, except for one small thing. You see, originally I was supposed to give this individual, this snake-like individual, something that's supposed to represent the entirety of what their elemental affinity had to offer, namely something like a staff or a sword or a shield or maybe even a halo going around in a circle, and combining all 16 elements under a statue of basically like an avatar of this world. Instead of making every element be represented with a singular weapon, or even 2 weapons, because even that is going to be far too much. I figured that I was just going to put all of the specialized blocks and all of the some of the blocks from the various unique palettes that I came up with, or at least sort of came up with, into the pedestal where they actually look surprisingly better. So yeah, I think that about does it, or at least it does as far as the introduction for various building styles and various palettes and elements in question. I have been the Name Shifter, once again, reminding you that this is just the beginning of what is essentially going to be a very, very long project. And if you know anything about Age of Empires and Age of Mythology, you know exactly the kind of thing to expect when I say that all of these are going to have unique building styles, or at least as unique as I can get them to be. And the fact that there are no fewer than 27 different buildings within Age of Empires 2, and you know, not obviously discounting these statue thingies, because these are going to be part of a pre-existing building. There's going to be a lot of content to look forward to, and I cannot wait to see your guys' response and to showcase some of my favorites out of the stuff that I've made in the past several months. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know which element you like the most. Let me know which character you like the most, if those are in fact not one and the same. And I'll see you when I am ready to showcase some of the houses that I've built. I'm starting small, but small steps lead to big, big adventures. See you then.